Hello, and welcome to Terrastorian. I am Ragnura, and today we bring you the start of a new series called Operator Lorelight, in which we tell the stories of the many operators in a comprehensive, easy-to-understand format. We are starting the series off by going over one of the most recognizable characters in Arknights, Margaret Nearl. Now, let us begin. Margaret was born on the 23rd of April, 1072, into the respected Nearl family. From a young age, she was trained in the ways of knighthood by the adults of her family. Many times she would spar with her father, Schnitz Nearl. Schnitz, alongside his wife Jolanta, were celebrated as great heroes of Kazimierz. Aside from them, other notable members of the Nearl household include her uncle Muenar, who was almost as celebrated as her parents, her grandfather Kirill, who was the most decorated knight their family had ever seen, her little sister Maria, and her aunt Zofia, who acted more as a sibling. However, the comfortable times she spent with her family ended soon after she became 10. One day, in 1082, after a wonderful sparring session against her father, her mother tells her to take care of her little sister and grandfather. After that, two ironclad knights knocked on their door. The knights, more akin to terrifying monsters to the young Margaret, had come to take her parents away, and her parents were leaving willingly. But even to the young Margaret, something seemed very wrong. She didn't understand what, she didn't even know why the Silver Knights were looking for her parents, or even who they really were. She had expected her uncle, or maybe even her grandfather, to stop them. But they didn't. They couldn't. All she could do was hold her baby sister in her arms as her parents were suddenly ripped from her life, never to return. Even so, Margaret never became bitter or lost hope. To be a knight is to be the noble light that illuminates the land. This was her creed and her declaration to the world. Eventually, in 1091, after years of training, she entered the 22nd Kazimierz Major, a perennial competitive tournament that is enjoyed by all of Terra. Think of it as a sport with merchandise, regulations, and sponsors. Sponsors that Margaret did not take advantage of. She entered alone, accepting no help from any organization or company, and even so, she managed to win. It isn't clear exactly what went down throughout the event, but there are little tidbits that we know of. She took on Titus Topola, aka the Left-Handed Knight, alongside two others in a 3v1, of which she came out victorious. This left Titus with a huge grudge against the Nearls, and left Margaret with a huge following of fans. In the final round, she defeated a competitor by the title of the Silver Knight, and as the winner, she was hailed as the Radiant Knight, all of which she did at just 19, which was seen as a problem for the stakeholders. Soon after the 22nd Major, her grandfather Kirill revealed to the public that in reality, she was infected with erypathy. In Kazimierz, the infected are treated worse than second-class citizens. While their treatment does get better in the future, at the time, the infected were forbidden from participating in the Kazimierz Major. And because of that, Margaret got exiled from the Grand Knight territory and Kazimierz as a whole. What the public and some of the most important people in charge of Kazimierz didn't know, though, was that Kirill's reveal was not the truth. It was a simply false accusation, one meant to protect Margaret from Kazimierz. In short, a lie. Margaret Nearl had won too greatly. If she had taken a sponsor, or was less knightly, nothing would have been an issue. But Margaret lived by her creed, and that creed was dangerous to the profits of the KGCC and other stakeholders. If Kirill hadn't stepped in, Margaret might have been assassinated by the resentful corporations of Kazimierz. And so, Margaret lived the next few years in exile. She traveled from place to place, aiding whoever she could, most notably the infected. We don't know the exact locations of her visits, but we do know that at some point she passed through Victoria, alongside other countries. During her travels, she met two Sarkaz named Shaine and Liz, aka Nightingale. The two Sarkaz became her companions, and they formed a group called the Followers. She traveled with them for a precious time, forming a close bond with them as they traveled through other nations like Lothlorien, continuing to help however they could. They eventually came across Rhodes Island, and Margaret registered as an operator there alongside Shaine and Liz, which leads us to the main story of Arknights. Margaret makes her first appearance in the prologue at the start of the Chernobog Lungman crisis. She of course plays a respectable role here. Alongside Operator Ace, she saves Amiya and Doberman's squad from Mephisto, Faust, and Crown Slayer during their escape from Chernobog. After that, she tanks a literal meteor to save a medic operator, and then takes on Tallulah to shield Amiya, the Doctor, and the others from the Draco's arts. She almost dies here, but manages to survive thanks to the sacrifice of Ace. Finally, she leads a team that plays a role in stopping Chernobog from colliding with Lungman by creating an artificial sandstorm. This all leads us to the 24th Major in 1097. After journeying 6 years and turning 25 years old, Margaret decides to return to Kazimierz alongside Shaine and Liz in order to honor her own creed and the history that Kazimierz once stood for. During her time in exile, her sister Maria had taken it upon herself to join the 24th Major in Margaret's place. After Margaret's exile, the Nearl family almost fell into poverty due to not having a capable leader. Mwanar was bitter. Haril had died to the age-old sickness called being too bold, and there was only so much Zofia could do. So Maria took it upon herself to restore some pride in the Nearl family. Sadly for her, due to the fact that she had followed in her sister's footsteps and refused to take a sponsor, and that the Nearl family was under heavy scrutiny at the time, she gets set up in a fixed match that was meant to kill her. Thankfully for her though, Margaret managed to save her just in time and defeated the corrupted and withered knights by interfering. Illegal in every sense of the word, and yet still completely in tune with her creed. From there, Margaret took Maria's spot in the Major, and this was accepted by the people in charge of the tournament because it was controversial, and controversy breeds money and attention. During the Major, she gets gifted her now signature sword spear, and manages to win fight after fight. From taking down her old rival, not really, Titus, to having a friendly duel with the Candle Knight Viviana. She gets to appreciate her homeland once again, taking Shaine and Liz out onto the streets of the Grand Knight territory. Throughout the Major, she gets to restore hope in her scornful uncle by sparring with him, winning fights, and staying true to her personal creed. It's not like she doesn't struggle, however. She basically draws against a young and passionate Knight Mizora named Tola. In their fight, no winner could be decided due to the rule-breaking nature of Tola's attacks, so Tola was disqualified in their fight. And finally, she gets to fight against the previous champion of the Kazimierz Major, the Blood Knight Daikaiopoulos, the winner of the 23rd Major, and a truly infected champion. The battle between them was as honorable as the fight Margaret had with Viviana, only far more bloody. But as awe-inspiring as it was, the very structure of the fight was like poison to the KGCC, because again, the two were infected fighters. The KGCC tried to stop their duel in whatever ways they could, but were left unsuccessful at every turn. They weren't just going up against the match itself, they were going up against the people working with and inspired by the Radiant and Blood Knights. Even so, the KGCC had one last trump card. After Margaret manages to beat Daikaiopoulos and become the champion of the 24th Major, the KGCC reveals the truth of her exile, and the fact she was never infected to begin with. This was meant to turn the infected against Margaret, but she was truly too radiant and inspirational. After their fight, she decides to carry the Blood Knight on her shoulder, taking him with her into the Champions Hall. From other infected knights to the Silverlands Pegasi to even Mwanar, everyone who respected her paved her way. After the Major, Margaret decides to stay behind in Kazimierz, involving herself more with the politics of Kazimierz in order to shine light upon the land that was once hailed for its chivalry and honor. Around a year later, due to circumstances not related to Kazimierz, Margaret joins the Londonium War. Liz gets kidnapped by the Sarkaz known as the Confessarius. No, I am not saying his real name. Margaret gets called by Shaine for help, and of course, Margaret rushes into action. After Shaine takes down multiple Confessari guards, Margaret joins her from Originium-ridden clouds to fight side by side. Although they don't quite reach her in time, Liz manages to damage the Confessarius severely, causing him to retreat. After which, Margaret helps Liz and Shaine get away from the Confessari ritual area, and after they get to safety, despite her terribly weakened state, Liz decides to heal any comrades they find, under the protection of Shaine and Margaret. And that leaves us with no more Margaret Nearl to explore. As of 1098, she's 26 years old and currently affiliated in different ways with the Followers, Rhodes Island, the Nearl household, and Kazimierz as a whole. We hope you enjoyed this video, and that it made you want to press those big like and subscribe buttons. This was the first video in the Operator Lorelight series, and the first video I've ever narrated. So if you have any suggestions on how me and or the rest of the team can improve, leave a comment. Aside from that, this was Ragnura, and thank you for watching.